that we have is storytelling, capture your customer attention. And our esteemed speaker for this particular session is Professor KBS Bedi, ex-Vice President Marketing at PepsiCo. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Bedi's profile. Professor Bedi is an expert on soft skill, behavioral and sales training, and has a glorious history of contributing in the field of training and development across diverse disciplines. Professor Bedi has been certified as Global Sales and Merchandising Trainer by the Coca-Cola Company, Atlanta, and has basic and advanced sales training certification by Mercedes-Benz. He is also certified on modules like Campus to Corporate, Communication Skills, Conference Call Essentials by Achievers Inc. Corporation. He is currently pursuing super specialization in best practices for training and development, a research and delivery excellence module from ISTD, which is recognized by Government of India under HRD Ministry. His expertise in hand-holding of individuals, specifically consumers, is mainly due to his vast and rich experience of working with the top MNCs like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Mercedes-Benz. Professor Bedi is currently the Vice President at Chitkara University and also the Founder Director, Principal of Chitkara College of Sales and Marketing. His passion and enthusiasm for building the first College of Sales and Marketing in this region was so intense that it has led to creation of CCSM to become the best sales school in the country today and the only institution to confer an MBA degree in sales. 12 batches have completed the program successfully so far with 100% placement record in leading and reputed sales and retail brands of the country. So I hand over the session to Professor Bedi. So I request you to comment.
Sir, can you please unmute yourself?
Good afternoon to one and all, and thank you very much for inviting me to such a brilliant and exciting platform by GCM on the topic which is so very close to my heart, digital sales, and also my take on storytelling. You know, the importance of storytelling, why is it so extremely important for incremental sales. I would like to use the PPT which has been forwarded. Could you please help me out with that?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Just give it.
Well, the art of digital selling, the topic, as I said, is extremely close to my heart, and I have been practicing this sales, for that matter, for last almost 35 years. And how the digital sales has emerged as so very important topic in the times, rather the recent times. Last 3 months has made a absolute shift in the digital world. I mean, something that was not achieved in last probably so many years has simply transformed into a digital platform all across the world, making globe as an opportunity, and how relevant to discuss this interesting topic today. Well, my take on sales from the perspective of storytelling is very important here. Why storytelling? See, from the times immemorial, people have been fascinated by stories. This is something everybody, right from a child to an adult to a senior citizen, enjoys listening to stories and has a very close impact to your whole behavior creation or your emotional decisions. So storytelling, we are going to discuss, and how is it relevant in sales? That is my point. So let's start with the first one. Let's shift to the next slide, please. Next, please. Business development. See how storytelling, impacts the business development. This is something I want to highlight. See, any business development requires planning, organization, implementation. There is a project, there is a strategy, investment there, and ultimately, you got to market. So the whole process of business development involves, a storyline which has to create that emotional connect with the audience. See, anything, even Jio, when it was launched in the country a few years back, they came up with that change, the digital change that was required to be brought in this country for development. The digital impact by Jio. So people started, it was a story where people were told to empower themselves digitally. Karlo Duniya Muthi Mein. That was the concept. That was the title of the story. That the world will be in your, fist. That is how that was created. And then they offered. The strategy was to, have the larger depth and the breadth of its, distribution, and they started free, absolutely free, utilization of those SIMs and all that for a year or so. And then how they started with charging very low amount, and this is what the story has rather come to its final stage, where the project has been launched commercially on the full basis, and international participations are required, are pouring in. So storyline is very important. So it was based, it was focused, it was targeted for masses and not classes. The whole country was targeted to get implemented or to take advantage of that penetration through web services or digital services. And similarly, the story could be for classes also. When it is luxury or premium segment, then we got to create story around such people who are into that segment, could be luxury or premium segment. Whereas there are stories which are built around common people. And this is how the whole business development is planned through storytelling. Next. Could you please have the next slide?
Yes, sir, please.
Competitive advantage. See, when we see storytelling, it is extremely important to utilize the competitive advantage of any business or any institution through storytelling concept, because decision making is more of an emotional than logical aspect. So telling a story can help distinguish your company or the competitors. I give an example here. The esteemed university that I work at, Chitkara University, one of the renowned universities in North India, is born out of passion. Now we have so many universities in and around Chandigarh, rather Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, but it has a unique identity. Chitkara has a unique identity. It is different from the others in many ways. And what are those ways? The first one is that it is born out of passion. It is an initiative by distinguished mathematicians. They were all throughout their life, they were teachers, they were mentors, they were professors, they were scholars, PhD holders. And therefore, the storyline of Chitkara is that the legacy of educationists, the passion born out of a teacher's experience of 45 years is what is Chitkara to offer. And that focus on quality education from the perspective of all the stakeholders, like students first, then parents, then faculty, then your society. That story connects all that. And when it talks to the people about its quality, then we have a very limited number of students to focus on. Rather, I would call laser sharp focus on quality. It's like Harvard, which works on very few numbers, but its quality is known to the world. So it's a Harvard in making. Maybe 50 years or 100 years down the line, we could be speaking of Chitkara like this. No capitation fees, uniqueness again, storyline. When it is education at its best, it's an island of success, or it is excellence, which is seen in education. So there is no capitation fees involved. There is no management quota. We have the proud legacy of educationists working in last 4 to 5 decades. And this is the storytelling. And this is how it distinguishes or brings us as a unique university from the crowd that is available. So many universities here. And this is how the storytelling helps you to take the competitive advantage. Thank you. Next. Maintains attention and increases understanding. Stories are very, very powerful tools to create attention and to increase understanding. See, the whole Hindu religion, which is 5,000 years old, probably the oldest religion in the world, is also pivoted around storytelling. We have Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Those most powerful, our ethics, our values, our whole concept, our psychology, our philosophy is all based on the mythology and the stories that have been told generations after generations. We see it through movies, we see it through serials. And what an important and powerful impact it has while maintaining attention and increases the understanding. So similarly, when we talk of hospitality group, we have heard of Oberoi, a young, probably helper who started his career from Cecil Hotel in Shimla. You see, working under the British. And when in 1947 the Britishers left the country, such loyal was he, or his loyalty was par excellent, and he was rather bestowed and gifted with the same hotel, as a will by the Britishers, by his boss, to say that since you have worked so well for me, that you've been such a loyal and honest worker here for many years, this is my gift to you. And he started that hotel, which was gifted. And then that whole Oberoi chain, which is now an international chain, the values, the ethics, everything is through that story which began in 1947. And this is how it creates so much of curiosity and interest. Similarly, Taj Hospitality, the Taj Hotel Mumbai, 1903, when it was founded more than now 117 years ago. The story again originates from there. And this is how it goes on. So stories have values. Stories have such curiosity. They create interest. There was another story that I want to highlight here. There was a woodcutter and an honest woodcutter. And he was one day sitting on a tree and he just happened to lose his axe, and there was a river flowing and that axe fell into the river. And he was very upset, depressed, because his tool with which he was working, he was cutting the wood, had fallen down. So he does a prayer to the God, and God simply emerges or appears from that small river and asks this woodcutter, why are you so upset? You look depressed. He said, God, I have lost my axe. It just fell in the river. And that is why, I'm out of work, out of the job today. And God said, don't worry. He dips into the water. God gets him a platinum axe. But this honest gentleman, he refuses. He says, God, this is not my axe. Absolutely not mine. God again dips into the river and gets a gold axe, which was studded with a handle of diamonds. This woodcutter again says, no, God, this is not mine at all. He was amazed at his honesty. And this is exactly what we teach in business ethics, also sometimes the same story. And God dips again to get the third axe, which was his, a wooden axe with an iron, cut in the front. And he says, yes, God, this is the one. And God, he says, I'm simply amazed. You are too honest. You are a phenomenal character. And we admire your integrity, your quality, your virtue of being honest and true to yourself. And he thanks. Now, the story continues. Another day, this gentleman, again, the woodcutter is walking around the same canal, on the bank of this canal, with his wife. And suddenly she falls into the river. Oh my God, he says. It is shocking. My wife has fallen into the river. What will I do without her? And suddenly the God appears again. And he says, why are you so upset again? He says, God, my wife has fallen into the river. He says, don't worry. This time, God dips into the river again and gets Aishwarya Rai out of that river. And this woodcutter jumps with enthusiasm and happiness. And God asks, is this your wife? He says, yes. Now look at this. He's tempted by the beauty of Aishwarya Rai, young Aishwarya Rai at the age of 21. Simply amazing, beautiful, young. And he says, this is my wife. And God was very upset. And he told him, this is not done. Last time you were so honest with your acts. What has happened to this? Why has your honesty gone haywire? By looking at a beautiful woman, you have been tempted to say this is your wife, which is not. Then he says, the woodcutter replies to God by telling him another story of his. It's a story within a story. He tells him, God, I have a story to tell. Please listen to this. God says, what is that you want to tell me? He says, God, last time when I lost my axe, you gave me a beautiful axe. Then you offered me the second one. And lastly, the third one, and you asked me to keep all the three. This time I was mindful that I have to say yes to the first one without giving you a chance to go for the second one. And actually the third one is my wife, because when you tell me take them all, I am not in a capacity to keep all the three. And therefore, I had to say only first, I had to accept this. So this is how stories within stories work. And this is increasing the understanding, maintaining attention. And so this is how stories create curiosity. Next. Marketing and advertisement. Storyline also helps you to market your product. Well, Hyundai a few years back introduced new innovations, new life. That was a tagline, the story tagline. It created many innovative models and many innovative products. Similarly, Tata's create stories for their trucks, where it so shows rough and tough trucks from Tata's. This is how your marketing concepts or advertisements, they are all aligned to your kind of stories. Next. It increases employees' efficiency and engagement. Well, the sense of story or the story line also creates a lot of teamwork amongst the employees and keeps them engaged. A few years back, if you see, let us discuss in the telecom sector. There used to be a telecom provider by the name of Hutch. And that Hutch used to have that Chica, the pug, which was its mascot. That was its mascot, and that pug used to go along with that small child wherever it was going, in the hills, in the rivers. That pug was always accompanying that little boy. And that was the storyline, just to depict, just to highlight, just to inform, just to announce, just to engage that your network works everywhere, whether you go to the hills or you go to the lakes or Kerala, wherever it works. The pug follows you behind. That is the storyline. Similarly, Vodafone, in the season 2 of IPL, they came with that Zuzu, which created a story, those characters, the white in color. And they were represent Vodafone. Airtel, friendship, dosti nibhana, मौज मस्ती गाना म्यूजिक डांस, जहां पे भी मिल बैठेंगे दोस्त, जहां पे भी दोस्ती होएगी वहां पे नेटवर्क होगा. Airtel, that creates a bond between the employees, between the clients, between the customers. And this is how the stories work. Next. Decision making. Well, there are 7 steps to effective decision making, which I have highlighted in this slide of mine. However, stories create interest. Interest boosts sales. Sales create loyalty. And loyalty helps in decision making. So this is the sequence. Stories create interest. Interest boosts sales. Sales create loyalty. And loyalty helps in decision making. This is my take on decision making. Next. Yes, humanizing a brand and increasing profit. Air India, for that matter, so many years in operation. J.R.D. Tata was the founder. Ever since that time, it has a mascot, which is that Maharaja with a beard and with the mustaches, wearing that king-size pagdi and Punjabi jutti. You know, it is humanizing a brand. You may be world over anywhere, America, Canada, Singapore, Australia. When you see the brand Air India, the mascot, the Maharaja, you tend to associate with India. Air India. You have that binding, you have that bond attached with this Maharaja. He is in a masti mood. And therefore, Air India talks about Indian food. You know, you may be American living in America for 40 years, 50 years, but your Indian food, your taste buds, butter chicken, your golgappe, your tikki salad, whatever, वो आपको इंडिया का जो मजा है वो दिलवाता है एयर इंडिया, है नी? और फिर Indian dresses, that lady walks into the cabin with a sari, silk sari, Banarsi sari, and humanizing a brand, telling you Indian story. You are an Indian at heart. You may be living in England for all your life, but you remain an Indian at heart. And the comfort, Indian attachment, Indian bindings, Indian network. And this is how humanizing a brand and increasing profit, you know, an Indian will tend to take Air India ticket first, unless it is otherwise के कोई route नहीं select हो रहा, उसको मालूम है कि Indian खाना मिलेगा, है जी? और Indian मतलब कि बातचीत होगी, हिंदी में बात करेगी वो, या पंजाबी च गल कर लूगी, है ना? Air hostess. So this is how that brand value, or it is through a character or through a story that matters. Next. Transfer values and beliefs onto your audience. Well, we have seen ever since our independence way back in 1947, or even before that, certain values have been created in the mind of people, like Tatas, Birlas, Godrej, Raymonds, you know. So people tend to, you know, have those beliefs on certain values of the business. All these brands that I have named, they are very ethical. They are pro-consumer. They have never cheated their clients. They are heavy on devotions. They have created some religious infrastructure. Birla Mandir ban chuke hain. Hindustan mein jagah jagah pe. Birla Mandir. So it is your belief, religion, your values, your virtues. So people tend to transfer values and beliefs onto your audience or your followers through stories. We have been told about such philanthropists and such great businessmen in this country, Lodha Group for that matter. Now in Bombay reality, in Bombay builders, whatever concept you see, real estate, Lodha builders are doing this concept, creating value, where somebody investing 5 crores and above, you know, feels that if it is Lodha Group, it has to be a good group. So this is my take on this point, which I have included in my slideshow. Thank you. Next. Emotionally connect people through stories. You know, stories have a great emotional connect. And our behavior is influenced by our emotions. Our consumer behavior, our buying behavior, our spending behavior, everything is emotionally connected. and also creates loyalty. Stories or ads or concepts help in identifying, like washing powder Nirma, दूध सी सफेदी, Nirma se aayi. Nirma created that buzz for many years. Washing powder Nirma. A Gujarati fellow, not very much educated, had that emotional connect with the audience across the country. Washing powder Nirma, or those ladies were thrown in the air with white saris and white kurtas and pajamas. This is the power. Then we had LIC, Zindagi ke saath bhi aur Zindagi ke baad bhi. LIC, that trust. That lady was watching her deceased husband on a photograph which was garlanded, and she was standing with her son and a daughter, and she was trying to see कि आप तो सब कुछ कर गए अपनी जिंदगी में. What an emotional connect. Couldn't have been better. LIC of India, जिंदगी के साथ भी और जिंदगी के बाद भी. वो एक स्टोरी कनेक्ट, हमारे टाइम पे वो स्कूटर होता था बजाज, हमारा बजाज. वो सुबह उठ के उसको पॉलिश करता है, चमकाता है उसको, और उसकी जो हेडलाइट है अपनी बीवी को पीछे बिठा के अपने बेटे को आगे खड़ा के, हमारा बजाज. What a connect. This is storytelling. This is influencing people for a right connect and creating that loyalty, which was running very profitable for these business houses for many years, rather decades together, I would call. Years, maybe 2-3 decades, it was a product of choice. Next, thank you. Next, G. Memorable. How memorable? Stories remain memorable for many, many years. It's a dent which it creates on the mind, and we call it top of mind. In business, in marketing, in sales, there is something called top of mind, jo aaj sar ke upar, and that is why there are many events held for creating that top of mind. Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. That slogan ruled the roots for many years. Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. लोगों ने कोका कोला को ठंडा ही कहना शुरू कर दिया. ठंडा दे दो यार, ठंडा दे दो. मींस दुकानदार को पता अगर ठंडे का मतलब है तो कोका कोला. Chilled and refreshing Coca-Cola. That was the impact. World Cup जो हुआ cricket का match 1996. The sponsor was Coca-Cola. But Pepsi took greater advantages by saying nothing official about it. It was not a sponsor, but it was outside. But see how the story builds, nothing official about it. They took advantage. And this is how we remember the big brands creating those memorable moments in the mind of the audience and the consumers for many, many years. Next. Stories create purpose and drive action. Well, the latest story that we are listening in last 3 months, ever since this, the conflict that LAC has enhanced, about stories of how Chinese are, planning against India and all that. Now there are stories being created. Wanchuk at Leh and Ladakh, a very, very renowned figure, a professor, a doctor, a PhD holder, is trying to see the negative design of the Chinese at Ladakh. And this is how he's creating stories and is trying to put them into the mind of various audience, rather the whole country as such. And that story being created to boycott Chinese goods or Chinese products are gaining importance. And this story of the whole fact that if we buy China product, Chinese goods, ultimately the money goes to China. And with the same money, probably China is going to empower its own country against India with the armament, and those are being used against it. So it is through a storyline we are trying to create purpose. And the purpose is to avoid Chinese goods, to boycott Chinese goods. And drive action. Action is that we have to simply avoid such things. Buying them. We have to discourage buying some things. And that is the reason those 57, apps were immediately abandoned or discarded. This is the impact of the story, the purpose, and the action. Next. In conclusion, I want to say that it is difficult to find a successful brand that does not have a good story behind it. You cannot really imagine a single brand that does not have a good story behind it. Every brand. Stories provide meaning, create context, and evoke a sense of purpose. And most humans are more receptive to stories than compared to facts or data. आप किसी को facts और data बताते जाओ ना, किसी को figures, nobody gets interested. Whereas stories help us to relate, empathize, and remember. This is why more businessmen are increasingly recognizing the importance of storytelling. This is my conclusion of my first slide. Next. Storytelling in sales. वो तो पहले था storytelling overall. अभी sales में stories है. मैं 35 साल से sales कर रहा हूँ. I have had the honor and the privilege of having worked in Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and Mercedes-Benz. The three major multinationals which are more than 100 years old. Coca-Cola bhi, Pepsi bhi, तीनों 100 साल पुरानी है. And they have evolved ways and processes and systems which are also 100 years old. It's country tested, time tested, everything. And they have evolved with the best practices, which we had the honor and again the privilege to learn and to implement. And rather the creation of the first sales college or the sales academy at Chitkara University is an outcome of that. Learning so much of sales and the best practices, we've launched a sales academy, which was rather started with just less than 15 students from the basement. Now it's in the flourishing stage where more than 350 students take admission. Rather, last year they took admission. This year we have a plan bigger, maybe 500 take admission this year in 3 verticals: retail sales, pharma sales, and BFSI. We are adding automotive. We are also adding event management and also FMCG. So sales, storytelling plays a very, very pivotal role, crucial role, important role. Because sales is backed by science. Sales has become a highly scientific process over the years. 30 साल पहले इसको scientific नहीं मानते थे. It was one of the many options for career, but not looked as important as engineering or medicine or law. It was not attracting the youth of the country then. But sales is a highly scientific subject as on date, thanks to companies again of multinationals like the one I have named. So human brain is designed to love stories. And that has been scientifically proven. Second reason, storytelling makes sales fun and frolic. हर एक को अच्छा लगता है. 5 साल के बच्चे को भी वो दादी के पास जाता है, दादी मेरे को स्टोरी सुनाओ. एक यंग अडल्ट अपनी गर्लफ्रेंड के साथ जाता है, घूम रहा है, वो भी उसकी स्टोरीज सुनता है या अपनी स्टोरीज बता रहा है. You know, middle age, old age, we love stories and we've been listening to stories. Stories. And sales में हम ये story telling को ही एक strategy बना देते हैं to connect well with people, because sales में the primary focus is to connect well with people. If you connect well, probably the sale is possible only then. You know, that you dress up well, you speak well, you smell well, you walk the talk well. Har ek cheez, best impression, the first best impression you create. All is done to connect well. And storytelling is a strategy to connect well. It is also a strategy to get their attention. You know, you tell stories, you make stories, you speak stories to get attention of somebody who would listen to you with a lot of focus, razor focus. And stories make you personal that way, you know, it's a personal touch. So I have highlighted these 5 pertinent reasons why storytelling in sales is of extreme importance. We cannot really do without it. Next. Okay, just to give an example, ये एक सेंट्रो की एड हुंडई ने डाली है और देखो उसका स्टोरी का इंपैक्ट देखिएगा. Few years back, the Hyundai company, you know, they wanted to highlight or advertise their Centro car and how they have created that story. Just have a look. I want to highlight this to all my audience, please. Aji sir, sound.
Hello, sir.
Hello, ready for your new names?
Yes, sir. Sir, आपके लिए हमारी पोस्टिंग कहाँ है?
Cargill.
Wow, Cargill. How exciting.
Yes.
Can we have it again? Sound, please.
Yes.
Remember? A soldier never quits.
बादलों में छिप गई मंजिल तो क्या, पर्वतों में डूब के हैं रास्ते तो क्या.
लेट होने का मतलब था ड्यूटी में फेल, इसलिए निकल पड़ा पैदल. वो कहते हैं ना, एक रास्ता बंद हो जाए तो 10 रास्ते खुल जाते हैं.
किस तरफ जाना है?
जी मुझे कारगिल की तरफ जाना है.
आ जाइए, मैं छोड़ देता हूँ.
अरे आप तो इस तरफ जा रहे हैं.
कोई बात नहीं, आप आ जाइए, मैं छोड़ देता हूँ. आइए.
और शादी?
वो तो हमारे होने वाले ससुर जी चाहेंगे तब होगी.
लेकिन वो कब जाएंगे?
जब मेरी गवर्नमेंट जॉब लग जाएगी. उसी के इंटरव्यू के लिए जा रहा था.
बहुत जिंदा दिल इंसान था. महसूस ही नहीं होने दिया कि इतना आउट ऑफ द वे जाकर उसने मेरी हेल्प की है.
हम सफर तू चलना यूं ही, बन याद मेरे संग रहना यूं ही.
देखिए बरुआ जी, टाइम पे पहुंचा दिया ना.
लेकिन आपने मेरे लिए अपना इंटरव्यू मिस कर दिया.
भाई हमारा तो क्लियर है जी. जो देश की ड्यूटी पे जा रहा हो उसकी ड्यूटी सबसे पहले करो.
और आखिर उनकी सैंट्रो ने मुझे मेरी मंजिल तक पहुंचा दिया.
उसके बाद आप कभी मिले उनसे?
मयंक, रावत साहब, प्लीज कम. प्लीज. ये है वो जो उस दिन अपने जॉब इंटरव्यू के लिए नहीं पहुंच सके क्योंकि मुझे वक्त पे कारगिल पहुंचना था. श्रीकांत रावत साहब, आप हमारे यंग ऑफिसर्स को कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
हमारा तो आज भी क्लियर है जी. जो देश की ड्यूटी में जाए सबसे पहले उसकी ड्यूटी करो।
ऐ हम सफर तू चलना यूं ही, बन याद मेरे संग रहना यूं ही।
पिछले 20 सालों से आपकी यादों का रिश्ता रहा है Hyundai के साथ। लिख भेजिए अपनी Hyundai सेंट्रो, एक्सेंट या i10 के साथ जुड़ी कुछ ऐसी ही यादें जिन्हें हम शेयर करेंगे सबके साथ।
Yes, please. Well, this is the power of storytelling. How emotional connect. What an emotional connect it was. This is through storytelling, the company Hyundai has tried to sell their Centro. Look at the amazing connect and creates that feel-good factor for the armed forces and salutes the officer. This is how I wanted to depict the importance of storytelling. Now, art of storytelling. Broadly, a storytelling is an art which has to be understood completely. Act 1 is you have to create a compelling opening. You know, in this advertisement of Centro, see the sales rep, you know, or the concept or the story portrays about the current state featuring the client and the hero who faces the great challenge. You see this. He was to reach his destination, an army destination. And there was a great challenge. I mean, the train engine got struck. He was made to walk. And Act 1 shows that he's on a footpath, or rather, he's on a road. And that whole challenge is shown. Great challenge is shown, difficult and all that. Act 2, if you see, there is a clear build. A person clearly comes with a product, with a clear vision, clear thought process. He has to give priority to the soldier, to the officer. And how that Centro, the product, working with the brand, conquers the obstacles. I mean, the distance which was to be covered and the time which was lost. The pain area reduces pain and increases success. The Centro car is the Act 2, and the vision of the gentleman who was to appear for his interview is clarity of thought. And Act 3, a powerful close. The gentleman driving the car enables to reach in time. As a result, the officer reaches his unit in time to take the measures that he wanted to require to take immediately, and therefore clear call to action. Act 3, and they are both, there's a happy ending, win-win situation. Okay, and the same success is replicated by, you know, time passed, many years after. Now this young soldier, young officer becomes the commanding officer. Now he is giving training to his young lot of newly inducted officers. And he invites the same gentleman who had missed his interview at this function because he couldn't thank him enough. And suddenly, introduces him to the young officers, telling him that he was the gentleman who enabled him to reach the destination then, about 25 years back. And then he salutes him again. This is Act 3, the culmination, the climax of the story. So art of storytelling has Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. It creates a whole lot of excitement. You know, goosebumps appear and a lot of fascination is felt. Next. In the end, I would like to thank once again Mr. Agarwal, the Managing Director and CEO of GSM, Mr. Gurang, and the team working at GCM for all this fantastic opportunities given to so many speakers today. And everybody was extremely awesome in his or her own style. And thank you once again for inviting me and creating this slideshow. I'm so very proud, and I'll keep sharing such exciting topics in the future as well. Stay safe, stay blessed. God bless you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Professor Bedi, for taking time out today and being with us. I request all the participants to ask if any question you may have, please do ask. You may unmute yourself and shoot the question. We'll take questions for another 10 minutes before moving on to the next session. So there is a question in the Q&A tab over here by Shreyash. I would really like to appreciate your energy. It's fantastic. Okay, that's not a question, but a compliment. If there's any more questions, compliments, anything, please feel free. We have another 10